appreciate. So um, I'll do a little bit of an overview in terms of our team and elaborate a little more on what Josh has kind of gone through. So we're currently a team of four. We've been going now for just over 3 years. Our team were based initially across both the US and Europe, and now we are all in Europe. We have Miles and Crystal, who looks after digital marketing, and we have Max, who is our publicist that looks after the PR side. When we started this agency, it was a one-man band, being me, that ran everything. So I'm very capable of doing everything, and I now essentially oversee all of the campaigns that we run. In terms of the problem that we solve, we kind of touched on this earlier, but there are a lot of bands, especially in their earlier development years, where they do think that their music will be enough. And it's a shame because there is some fantastic music that I've listened to in the past that deserves to be on the main stage at Download Festival, but they're not there because they either didn't have a release strategy, have no social media strategy in terms of an organic social media strategy, which is very, very, very important nowadays, or they did not invest in any form of paid advertisement and PR. If you're not doing that, at the expense of sounding a bit harsh, you are going to be at a huge disadvantage, and you're going to be right at the bottom of the barrel in terms of consideration for opportunities for things that are fun, like playing live shows, etc. So we're here to help solve that issue. And our mission is to be as transparent as possible. We want to be the most transparent marketing agency out there. And the reason why we picked transparency, frankly, is because I'm sure all of you have scrolled through Instagram a bunch of times and had various services and automated playlists, platforms pushed in your face. And it's really tempting because for the sake of something like £20, £50, they'll say you can submit yourself to 100 different playlists and it's going to turn you into the next big thing. They are almost always a scam. I've never come across a platform that is doing that in an ethical, correct way. If it was that easy, everybody would be Slipknot. So in order to approach a marketing strategy correctly, we do that with just Google ads, just Meta ads, and of course PR, which we'll get into in a moment. So like any other business, and you should treat your band, as Josh said, or your music in general, as a business. That is the way that we approach it. Businesses use Meta and Google to advertise their businesses, and we're doing the same but for your music. So there are no odd third-party services that we offer. Everything is all through those platforms, but also ran in your own ads account. So before I kick off and talk about our services specifically, all of the digital marketing campaigns that we do run are in your own ads account. So we partner with you. We don't ask for your passwords or anything dodgy like that. We ask you to make a Google Ads account or your Meta Business Manager account. We partner with you on either of those, depending on which platform you want to run ads on. And that means that we're being as transparent as possible because you can see everything that we're doing. So we're not taking your money and going to some bot farm and telling you we did X, Y, and Z. You can see everything that we're doing. And a secondary benefit of that is because it's in your own ads account, once our service is completed, if you want to finish around with it, then try and figure out what we did and replicate that yourself in the future. You're welcome to try and reverse engineer it and do that. If you want to turn the campaign back on for a bit, you're confident to do that without accidentally spending £500 a day, you're also welcome to do that. So a part of what you're paying for is, of course, for us to set up the campaign, test the campaign, give you a report at the end of the campaign, but also for all of the data, everything remains with you. So starting with PR, these are the three pillars of the three primary services that we offer. Now, each of these have all got different benefits to them. We are no longer in the 80s. And a lot of PR agencies would scoff at me for bringing this up as a topic and may not agree with me because they only do PR. We're in a brilliant position where we do PR and digital marketing. So I feel like I can be a little more transparent about this. So with PR, in the 80s, people would listen to independent radio more. They would go and buy magazines much more often than they do now. They would consider online blogs much more than they do prior to the start of social media. Now, with PR, there are still huge benefits to it, but they're just not as great as they used to be. So this was the only avenue to promote your music back in the day. Now, the main weight that this now carries is legitimizing you as an artist. So let's say Kerrang or Metal Hammer are the two biggies in the UK for media. If you have a full page spread in Metal Hammer, or you are featured on Kerrang Radio or BBC Radio 1, Rock Show, etc., that's great for legitimizing you as an artist. It really highlights that the industry know who you are and they're interested enough to talk about you. That's great because when you put that on your own social media, it evidences to your following that you are starting to progress and turn into one of the bigger bands that they listen to, which is fantastic. You, of course, do get the benefit of the coverage that you're getting from those medias, which has got the potential to win fans over for you. But generally, it is no longer the most common way in which people consume media. Therefore, not the number one place to be if your priority is generating new fans. Now, Meta, many people spend a lot of time doom scrolling. It's a problem, but it's also kind of beneficial for the marketing world and your music if you utilize it correctly. So, in terms of Meta, we push your creatives to a high intent fan base of A for fans of. So this is going to get a little bit nerdy and a little bit data driven. So I'll try and push through this one as quickly as possible. We take 5 ad creatives from you. And what we do is something called A/B testing. So we test those 5 creatives, which are vertical short form videos, against an audience that is cold. By cold, that means people that have not heard your music before. So let's say that you sound like, I don't know, the Foo Fighters, right? We will push your 5 ad creatives out to the fans of rock as an audience. Then we'll try alt rock. Then we'll try the Foo Fighters. And we'll see across those 5 ad creatives and those 3 audiences what results in the cheapest possible conversion. Now, if we're running a DSP campaign and we're running traffic to Spotify, and that's your objective, how we will approach that is we will make a landing page on your behalf. That landing page will look a little bit like Linktree. We use a tool called Smart Noise to do this. On that page, there will only be the option to click on Spotify. Now, often people ask, well, Dan, that's creating friction between sending somebody from Instagram through to our Spotify. And you're correct, it is extra steps. However, it's worth the extra steps for a few reasons. First reason is remarketing. So when somebody lands on that landing page, we grab their data and we put it into a custom audience for the future. We know that these people are familiar with your music, so they're much more likely to make purchasing decisions in the future because they know who you are. What it also does is it ensures that we deter bots. Now, you can each Google this yourselves. I don't have the self-research to give to you. This is all secondary research, having looked into this through various sources. It's estimated that around 50% of the traffic that goes through Instagram and Facebook are bots. So when you set an ad up on Facebook or Instagram, and you set that ad as, I am happy with a conversion being defined as a click on the ad, you're telling Meta that you are happy with half of those bots clicking on your ad. So you're immediately burning half of your money. This is why we make the landing page in the middle, because when we set your conversion value, it's to click on Spotify on the landing page, not the ad itself. So we naturally start to deter bots when Meta goes into its learning phase and it figures out what kind of profile it's looking for that will convert through to Spotify. With regards to YouTube, we run this through Google Ads, as I mentioned earlier. The purpose of this is a mix of fan generation. It's not as good as Meta at fan generation. However, it has got a benefit that Meta doesn't have, and that's your music video. It turns into an asset. So we run ads to Western countries only. And again, for full transparency, this is ran in your own Google Ads account in partnership with us. When we're running to these Western countries, what we're doing, again, similar to Meta, but less heavy on ad creative testing, is we are testing placements. So those placements are channels of bands and record labels that host bands that sound similar to you. And we're pushing across both in-feed and in-stream ad types. So in-stream are skippable ads, and in-feed are essentially thumbnail discovery ads. Over the duration of the month, and this applies across all aspects of digital marketing, we are testing to figure out where your ad is and how are people engaging with it. Is the conversion rate really expensive? And by that, I mean, are we spending a lot of money and not a lot of people are going through to the objective? Or are we, after testing various audiences, at a place where we can now start to niche down because we've identified where people are engaging with your music the most? So with YouTube, we pick normally around 100 different YouTube channels, and that as a starting point, we push that out to both in feed and in stream placements, and we will let that run for about 5 days. After that 5-day period, we will then start to niche down onto the channels where we can see that their audiences are typically engaging with your music video. Because it's quite common when I've had one-to-one consultations for me to come across bands who have tried to run Google Ads themselves. And they often fall into the trap of running in-stream only, which are the skippable ads, which will crank up the views on your video. Because once someone watches more than 5 seconds, that will register as a view of your actual music video, and it will suffer with very low engagement. So you'll end up with 50,000 views on your video, but you'll have 20 likes and 2 comments because it's been set up incorrectly. We don't do that. We work in a way to ensure that there's a nice balance between engagement and views. We try to make it look as natural as possible, but unfortunately, sometimes we're just so good at our job that most of the comments on a music video are in response to the fact that that individual has found the band through the ad. So they'll actually write in the comments, this song is awesome, the ad's doing the right job, you know. So it's a blessing in disguise, I guess, at being too good at our jobs sometimes. But with regards to PR, I'm going to show you some examples. So we have Hacktivist here as an example where, for those that are or are not familiar, this is a metal band that are predominantly rap. They mix grime and metal together. They went through a big lineup change, and now the only original member is this guy on the far left. Now, for the existing fans that they do have, this was a bit of a shaky experience for them because they felt as though the band were going to fall apart, which is completely natural given that the vast majority of the band had gone. So they came to us to ask us to run a campaign for them where we span a positive narrative about them going into a new journey, if you like, a new chapter of the band as opposed to the band falling apart. This was positive, and we had some great uptake from the likes of Metal Injection, Guitar World, Knotfest, and Primordial Radio. We also, again, and I'm going to say the word transparency quite a lot on this call. For the purpose of transparency, we also have the open rate of the press release itself and the click to open rate. So this went out to just under 1,000 medias. 60%, these are average weightings, 60% UK, 20% Europe, 20% US. Of 1,000 different medias, and around half of those opened it. Out of that half, nearly 20% actually clicked and took action within the press release itself. So watched the music video, downloaded the track, etc. With Worn Out, this is not the same story, but they are a Southern Island band, which is a very difficult place to be when you're trying to get your music out there. And they came to us because they wanted an agency that was weighted predominantly to the UK market, but had some exposure beyond there, because their next natural step, having been based in Southern Ireland for forever and having broken out in the scene there, the next logical step for them to move to was the UK. So they came over to us. We got some great uptake for them. They were labeled Kerrang Artist of the Week. And as a result of that, they were approached by Tangent Festival, and they will be playing this year. We also have Raised by Owls, who, if you can believe it from the picture, are actually a very, very heavy death metal band. We got some great uptake for them in Metal Hammer, Kerrang, BBC Radio 1, and Louder. And last year they opened up the main stage of Bloodstock Festival. For those that don't know what that is the second biggest metal and rock festival in the UK. I believe their cap is about 40,000. Then we have Meta. Um, so a lot of this is kind of a bit of an explanation in terms of what I was referring to with why you need to set your ads up in a certain way and why it's really important to test and not just run one ad creative out to one audience and cross your fingers that that will work out for you. When I mentioned about the landing page being a place where we gather a custom audience, now that custom audience is what we call a warm audience. They are people that do know the band, that might make purchasing decisions, that are hopefully fans of the band. Now, we utilize that data after running a DSP campaign, so running to Spotify for this band for a few months. And then we utilize that data that we gathered in the UK market only and ran ads for Shepherd's Bush Empire in London, which is a 2,000 capacity venue. And we're very pleased to say that they did, in fact, sell it out. So moving on to some other examples of Meta, we have Struck Down here. A key factor to highlight here is, whilst this is a great number of 185% streams, the part that really matters the most in terms of growth are the saves. So whilst we sent this traffic over, a higher percentage of that traffic actually saved their music and became long-term listeners, which is what I'm talking about when I'm referring to quality. It's the most important metric. We also have Phoenix Lake, again, with a very similar trend. Feel free to look these bands up on Spotify. They're there for you to check out as reference. And then finally, we've got YouTube, which again, this area here briefly goes over the areas in which we push. So in feed and in stream, optimizing audiences versus creatives, etc. So Echelon are an example of one of the bands that we work with. They are still yet to release a EP or an LP. Their strategy is to release a new song roughly every 4 to 6 months at the moment. They've released 5 songs so far. I know that's very, very, very slow. And from a timeline perspective, that's not the best strategy. It's not. However, they want to make sure that when they release a song, they are giving it all of the love they can possibly give it. So they're going to a really good producer, which is expensive. They're going to a really good videographer, which again is expensive. They want to ensure that they have ample budget for both PR and digital marketing, which again is expensive. So for that reason, they've opted to sacrifice doing a traditional EP release where you have one single every month leading up to, or the same with an LP. Instead, for now, whilst they're developing and they're very early in their career, they've decided to just drop a song every 4 to 6 months and sink a good amount of money into it where they're able to save that and contribute it over and over again. We also have, in retrospect, who are a little ahead of Echelon, very similar sort of band in terms of genre. They were we're all going to wear black and stand in the forest and do a DIY video, which every metal band in the world has done at some point. And unfortunately, it's very overdone. And I would heavily advise against doing anything like that to any client that we do speak to. And they've rebranded, so they've got this kind of blues style gangster thing going on, and they upped their production significantly and started to run ads with us. And now, recently, last year, they signed to Savior Management, which is a reputable management company here in the UK, and Passionate Records, that are a US-based record label. And finally, we have China. So some of you on the call, especially those that are more involved in the rock and metal scene, should be familiar with Jared Dines. He is a influencer, essentially. He's got a few million followers on YouTube, and he did a reality show on YouTube called Musician's Mansion, where he brought in a few influencers of different sizes that are involved in the rock and metal scene and basically just made a reality show out of them. Sheena was in there. She did really well when she came out of the mansion. She was very worried about that cross promotion that she was gaining falling and her algorithm dropping off a cliff because she's getting less traffic over to her music. So she came to us to essentially help less of a hard fall off where we would compensate for some of that traffic with paid advertisement. Again, all of these bands, they're on YouTube. You can go and see their music videos and see what we've done for them. And she was very happy with the results. So that's everything. We do offer free initial consultations, but I'll be honest with you, a lot of what I'm talking about today is what will be covered on that consultation. So if any of you do decide that you'd like to have a call with me, you're more than welcome to. But I would come prepared with some research on what you think you'd like to do so that we can spend our time most efficiently on discussing that as opposed to repeating the services that we offer. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. Over to you, Josh.
Yeah, no, Dan, that was amazing. For me, it always fascinates me understanding the PR side. Obviously, at LMS UK, we're very focused on the social media and the ad side, but the PR is a whole new realm. So I've learned some great bits on today's call. We've had a couple of questions I want to get in, but before we wrap up, Matt's asked, what budget at a minimum should we set aside monthly for using marketing to grow reach?
So it's dependent on it, it's a very difficult question to answer because it's dependent on how many people are in a band and how much money do you have that's available. Because if we're all millionaires, $1 million every single day, right? The best way I can answer that, I suppose, is our fees in terms of the ad spend amount that we will work with as a minimum per month is 300. We won't work with anything less than that. And to just clarify, that is not money that goes into our pocket, that goes to Google or it goes to Meta. And the reason why we need that amount of money is for testing. So when I'm talking about A/B testing audiences and creatives against each other, we need that budget to figure out what works for you so that we can find your audience and then utilize it.
Fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for turning up. Dan, genuinely thank you. You've got an absolute masterclass tonight. And more importantly, you've given us all the framework that we can use. I hope everyone's learned as much as I have. It's been absolutely incredible. I'm going to put Dan and the SickSet team in the chat with this video to watch back as well. I'll drop it in there tomorrow morning so you can check them out and we can pass them over to the rest of the artists. I want to say a big thank you to Dan and everyone else in the chat for turning up today to say thank you as well.
Some lovely. Yeah, thank you everyone for spending your evening on listening to me ramble today. Much appreciated.
That's been the Insider series, Dan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks so much. Bye.